20, Drutter here. It's day 59 of my lockdown diary. I'm going to put you down right there. I'm out in my shop. It's a mess, but it's got some interesting energy for recording and some good sound, or at least decent sound. The construction in my area has finally stopped for the day. It's after 6 now. And I can come out here and no one can hear me and I can't hear anyone, so it's kind of nice for recording. And a couple of different things today. I thought I would throw some darts. I haven't thrown any darts in years, and I've never actually been a dart thrower. I've only thrown them a few times, so this might be funny or dangerous, so stick around for that. And I thought I would talk about a couple of serious topics, but then go into something a little bit less serious. So why don't I throw a dart? I'll throw the red one first. Why not? I'll stand up for that. Ready? Ooh. I think that's just left of center there. I don't know how many points it's worth, but anyhow, what I want to talk about first is an article I saw today on CBC. Actually, I think it came out yesterday or today, I'm not sure, but anyway, I'll link it down below, of course. And it talks about how Canada is now finally okaying an antibody test for Canadians. And this is something that they have been gatekeeping, withholding essentially, by saying nothing was good enough, nothing was good enough, nothing that any company or country or anyone was coming up with was good enough or accurate enough or whatever. And then, so finally they've decided that they will administer it, but they are going to do it themselves. They're not releasing it to the public. So it won't be like we thought. It won't just be a little handheld test where you take a drop of blood off your finger, put it on the electrode, and it tells you whether or not you have antibodies, i.e. whether you are immune, i.e. whether you've already had it, i.e. whether you cannot give it to anyone else from that point on. So it would be really nice if we could get that to the people, but it's not going to be done that way. It's going to be administered through the government, and they are going to take 2 years, they say, to do the first 1 million antibody tests. And there are 40 million Canadians, so 1 million is only, 2.5% of Canada? 2 to 3% of Canada. It's going to take them 2 years to do that. In other words, it's going to take them, I don't know, decades to get everyone tested? That's not good enough. Oh, why even bother? And they talk about how it's going to be a long road back to normal, or it's going to be this is the way back to how it was. This is the only way, to get back to how it was. So they're dangling that now that we are incapacitated and locked down and with our economy in shambles and our families in disarray and everything right now, they are basically coming at us and saying this is the only way back to how it was. And you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to accept this, and you have to allow this, and we have to pass this bill, and so on. And you can see, if you've been doing this for a little while, as I have, where that's going. It's not going back to normal. It's not going back to the way it was. It's a never-ending carrot dangling in front of the people. This is the way back. You know what? We weren't even free before, but we would take that over what we've got now, of course. Guess what? We're not going to get that. We're not even going to get the way it is now. It's getting worse. The long road back to normal. Fuck you guys. Fuck you. I don't even know how that happened. Keep rolling. Now, another one on CBC today was an inside look at contact trackers. There's a whole new army, a whole new bill authorizing it, a whole new budget, a whole new section of government, a whole new branch of growing this evil system, a whole new group of enforcers who get to come anywhere they want in Canada, just like the Community Safety Unit, the CSU, that was formed at cannabis legalization in 2018 and has been going anywhere they want. Under official business, these people can go now anywhere they want. They are exempt from the charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, 1982. That's our constitution, essentially. They're exempt from that. So now the CSU for cannabis, and now this contact trackers for the virus now have unlimited, warrantless search and seizure of anyone and anything in Canada. See, there's way too many things here now that are unconstitutional, that would be the main story of something 10, 20 years ago, that would be the main story of what was going on. There's too many of those right now to even name. It's just a disaster for our freedoms and our rights, for liberty in Canada, in the United States, and anywhere else that considers itself part of the free world. Anywhere else that considers liberty to be important. It's a disaster right now. So this inside look at contact trackers, I was expecting to see, I don't know what I was expecting to see, but it was the typical government propaganda. Just like when they show you, here's a typical police officer, here's what the police do. Right? You could watch a government film on what police do, and I bet you it wouldn't be what we see on YouTube about what are police doing right now to people. So likewise, this contact tracker video is very, very propagandized, very, very dumbed down. So they have this very young, pretty girl on the phone calling people up and being friendly and asking them questions, trying to help them. And they say she has to slip in a little official business here and there, but she does as much help and as much being friendly and polite as she can. And then they mention that she has to use certain tactics to get around stubborn people or paranoid people, people that don't like this tracking. They have to get around those people somehow, and she asks them questions. They say she'll ask them 30 minutes of misleading questions before she finally gets to the meat of the question, the one she really wants to ask them, which is, do you use shared laundry or do you have your own laundry room? Seriously, that was the big question. But I don't think that's really what it's like. I think contact tracking is going to be more insidious than that. There's going to be hackers, basically, doing whatever they can electronically to get as much information as they can. And that's already the case, obviously, but that's going to continue and increase under this because they have warrantless rights now to come into your computer, basically, in any device you use. So it's just only going to get worse in that way. This girl, of course, says she's trying to help. Maybe she is. Maybe some of the people who are going into contact tracking are trying to help. They think that they're doing the right thing. Just like people who go into being a police officer in today's day and age. You're not the good guy anymore. Well, no bullseyes today. But at least I hit the board. That's pretty good for someone who doesn't throw darts. I think I want to wrap it up by talking about something. That's weird. The light just came on a little brighter than it was. I want to talk about something a little brighter, I guess, a little less dark than all that. Because I think a lot of us, including myself, have spent a lot of time and energy investigating and theorizing and what-ifing our way to every possible ending that is negative, every possible scary ending. And as I've said a lot of times, and a lot of people have said as well before me, that fear is a tool of the elites, it is a tool of governments and totalitarians and tyrants all through history. And it is being used against us right now in more complicated ways than ever before because all of our techniques and our technology continues to improve. So the fear that can be utilized against the people is larger than ever. I feel it, and everyone else feels it too, of course they do. So a lot of times when we look at these news stories and what's being put out there and stuff like that, you go down that road, you go down that avenue in your mind about where that could be leading. And it's easy to do because they're worded that way. they're worded so that when you read it, you get a certain energy, you get a certain vibration from it, you get a certain tone from even just everything about those new mainstream news articles and videos is choreographed, is chosen specifically. Even the mistakes in them are done that way on purpose. Everything in them is that way on purpose. And it is meant to steer us down those scary thought patterns. And when we get into those thought patterns, we get stuck in those thought patterns. We get, just like with pain, if pain is a real pain, say like a wound, is there forever, for a long time, for years or whatever, it will become a permanent pain. Often the nerve will remember that. And even if you do manage to heal that bone or that wound or whatever it was, you will have nerve pain sometimes. And people can have nerve pain that lasts for the rest of their lives sometimes, and it can be even worse than the original pain was. And it's the same with thought patterns sometimes. Those are just other nerves that are in our heads. They're nerves as well. And if they get overfired, those fear pathways in the amygdala and the hippocampus and other parts of the brain, those fear centers and fear nerves will become permanent pathways, and we become just overloaded with fear, and we become very ineffectual and stressed out to the max constantly, and always afraid, and always focused on negative outcome. And I don't know about your experience with this or your belief about this or whatever, but I have noticed, I won't go into it too much here, but I've noticed that we do have some control over our experience. We can choose to think positively or to think negatively. We can select our thoughts. Our emotions happen automatically, that's one thing, but our thinking, our conscious thoughts, and where we spend our time imagining is largely for us to determine. So we can choose to be positive, and it's easier said than done, of course, but if you do choose it, you can make it happen, and you can be more positive, at least more positive than before, not necessarily always perfectly positive, whatever that even means. But we do have some control over our experience, and if we spend a lot of time focusing on the negative, we often end up making choices, or subconsciously maybe, but one way or the other, we often end up in that future that we spend a lot of time dwelling on, preparing for, thinking about. Even if it's just from a fearful standpoint, we often go there anyway. We go towards things even if we're scared of them, if we are constantly focused on them. And so it's kind of like keep your eye on the ball. We want to think about things that are more positive. So just for a minute or so, and I haven't done this before, especially live on camera, but I just thought I would spend a minute or two thinking about, now that I've set it up for the past 3 or 4 minutes, thinking about some positive outcomes of this. All this that's happening now. And instantly when you do that, there's a complete change in your demeanor. You feel different when you're thinking positively. It puts you on a different pathways in your brain. Literally different nerves are firing right now in my brain. And maybe you can hear it even in the way I'm talking. I don't know. I feel like I'm more positive now, instantly, less stressed out. And those news stories that I was talking about before, yes, that is troubling, but what's something good that can come about from that? Well, what's another bad story I heard today is 3,500 people in Vancouver are being given free smartphones. These are people on the street that are homeless. I think that there's a lot better things we could do if we have taxpayer resources to spend on them, but nevertheless, what's something good that can happen about that? Well, someone said, oh, they're going to become snitches. Well, I was thinking maybe not. Maybe they're going to become people who are activists, because phones can turn people into activists. At various times, if all I had was a proper camera, I could have done so much more, but I was limited by what I had. I had no money. I was homeless for a while there in 2016 and 17. And I don't really want to dwell on that, but the point is, if I had had a good phone, I could have done so much more, and I was willing to and able to do so much more, but I was homeless. So now 3,500 homeless people have suddenly been given very high quality cameras and communication devices with some minutes on them and some data and so on. They can maybe do something with that. So that's something positive that might come out of it. Now people say, oh, they're probably going to sell them for drugs or whatever, and that may be true. But maybe some people won't sell it for drugs, they'll sell it for food and buy the food and give it to their children. Some of these homeless people might have children, might have pets. So we got to focus on what are some positives. And what are some positives about this whole thing? What could happen? There's so many people waking up right now. That has to be a positive, because it's something that we've been trying to do, or at least I've been trying to do for 15 years, is wake people up. And I've been saying there's something going on here. Something's not business as usual, I said about 2000 or so. And people instantly, just saying something's different about society, something's going on here, people knew what I was talking about. I didn't have to go any further. But they triggered on that, and they called me all kinds of names. They were so upset with me. It was about 2002 or 3, and I didn't even know what I was talking about then. I was just starting to question the official story on 9/11 just barely in my head, and hearing other people talking, and then looking at things in the economy, and I was going, it doesn't seem sustainable anymore. Something doesn't feel right. And I was right. It wasn't right. And I've been trying to wake people up ever since that moment. And from about 2007 on, I was adamant. I knew for sure. I've done, however many years of research on this, talked to however many people, and I'm convinced that something's not right with the way the world is being run. And I think most people on this channel know, or even all people on this channel know, that that is now the case. It's not right. It's not organic. It's not liberty for the people, and it's not sustainable. Something's not going right here, especially for the people. This is going really, really wrong for the people right now. And I think that so many people are waking up now that it almost feels like a success. I know I didn't do it. I know I had very little to do with it. And other people who are working alongside me as well. We can't really take a lot of credit for that. It's on the government. They are doing that. They're waking people up. So I have to think that what that means is they are running out of options, and that we have forced their hand. I don't know what it is that's forced their hand exactly. I think it's something to do with the internet. And I've said for a long time, the internet is a game changer. It's doing it. It's doing what it basically came here to do. The internet is changing the game. And yeah, the government created the internet, but I don't think that they anticipated everything that would happen, and this massive conscious awakening of the human race. All people, all consciousnesses on Earth essentially are coming together and communicating in new ways. And the system that has been trying to control us, keep us as livestock, and keep other animals as livestock, and keep this entire world enslaved and controlled, basically the technocratic elite, may be losing their grip. And this may be happening right now because they have very few options. Other people might say, no, I think this is the plan. And yes, I do think this has been a plan for a long time. This is a part of the plan. And yes, a lot of it is going according to their plan, yes. But in times like this, and I've said this from the start of this vlog series as well, this is when we get a wild card. This is when anything can happen. This is when they can screw up. This is when great people can all of a sudden arise and truly lead people toward liberty. This is when new projects can be started. This is when entire new countries or new ideas can be born. Because necessity is the mother of invention, and we are deep in necessity right now. We need help. We need a lot of things, and I think many good things will and are even now coming out of that. And it's up to us to watch for those things, because we have to identify when opportunities arise, because there may not be, a long time in order to get involved with them before things change. And like I said, it's a wild card right now. Everything's up in the air. So yes, it is a bit of a dangerous time, and yes, there is cause for fear, but we have to use knowledge to overcome the fear, and courage to overcome the fear, and focus on positives and focus on alternative outcomes, and don't always be focused on and foreseeing and putting energy into what you don't want to see and what you don't want to happen and what you don't want to be and who you don't want to be. And I think I will just wrap up the post on that note. It was 21 minutes or so, and thank you very much for watching. Peace and stay well.